This is the story of how they locked me in a basement and threw away the key, and how I turned that basement into theirs. At 17, I begged for answers. They gave me silence. I screamed for help. They called it discipline. But I didn't stay broken. I listened, I learned, I planned. And when I finally climbed those stairs again, I didn't run. I sealed the door behind me. And their punishment? It had only just begun. The first time they dragged me down there, I thought it was a joke. I was 17. My father's heavy hands clamped around my shoulders as he led me through the hallway, past the kitchen that always smelled of ash and burnt grease, past the living room where my older brother Tyler was sprawled on the couch, eyes on the TV like nothing was happening. My mother followed behind, her silence louder than anything they could have said. I asked where we were going. No one answered. I laughed, unsure, trying to break the tension like I always did. Dad opened the basement door. The stairs looked different that night, deeper, hungrier. When I hesitated, he shoved me. I stumbled, hit the first step on my shoulder, the next on my spine, and landed in the dark with my ribs screaming. He slammed the door shut, locked it. That was the first night. I screamed until my throat went raw, pounded on the walls, the door, begged through the cracks. But they didn't come back down. I didn't know what I'd done to deserve it. That first week blurred into black and blue. There was a mattress in the corner, no sheets, just springs that bit into my skin and stank of mold. A single hanging light bulb flickered on a timer, turning the darkness on and off like they were playing a game. They left a bucket for waste. Sometimes food came through the small slot in the door, sometimes it didn't. I tried to keep track of the days. Gave up after I lost count of my own teeth grinding in my sleep. They told people I'd run away. My mother even cried at the school. Said I'd always been troubled, that they tried to help me but I didn't want it. Tyler joked about me to his friends. I heard him once when the basement door was cracked open for a moment. Said I was crazy. Said I'd snapped. That I belonged in there. The thing is, they weren't wrong about one part. I did snap, but not the way they meant. After the first 2 months, I stopped begging, I stopped crying, I started listening. Through the thin walls and rusted vents, I heard everything. I learned the rhythms of the house like a second skin. I memorized when Dad came home from work, when Mom passed out drunk on the couch, when Tyler snuck girls in while they thought I was rotting in the woods. I heard their secrets, their arguments, their lies. I knew when the house breathed and when it slept. And slowly, quietly, I changed. The basement stopped being a cage. It became a classroom. I read the labels on the cleaning chemicals they stored next to the old tools. I tested what could scratch wood, what melted plastic. I rewired the light bulb with scavenged wires until it didn't flicker anymore. I watched. I waited. Time passed. A year, maybe more. I lost track again. My bones grew lean but hard. My voice softened from lack of use, but my mind sharpened like a blade. They forgot why they put me down there. They stopped caring. But I remembered everything, especially the sound of their laughter that first night. The day I got out wasn't a miracle. It was math. Tyler didn't lock the door right. I knew he wouldn't. He never paid attention, always high, always rushing. I waited until they were asleep, slipped the latch, climbed those stairs barefoot, careful. My heart didn't pound. It whispered. In the kitchen, I took a long breath. It smelled the same. Burnt grease and stale beer. Then I turned and sealed the door behind me, hammered the nails I'd stolen and hidden under the mattress for months, screwed the bolts in place, piled the heaviest furniture against it. When the noise started from below, I didn't flinch. They woke up to darkness. They screamed for hours. I sat in the living room and listened. And when they begged me to let them out, I said exactly what they once told me. No, this was just the beginning. Their hell had finally started. I didn't leave the house. Not at first. I made myself breakfast in silence, listening to the muffled cries through the floor, pancakes, bacon, black coffee, the kind of breakfast they never gave me. I even put on one of Dad's flannel shirts and sat where he used to sit, at the head of the table like a king in his stolen castle. Tyler was the loudest. Of course he was. The first day he screamed threats, pounded the walls until his fists bled. I could hear him yelling my name like it still meant something, but the walls were thick and the door was sealed tight. Every bolt, every nail, every piece of furniture was placed with care, just like they taught me, without realizing it. Their neglect shaped my patience. Their cruelty built my hands steady. I didn't respond. That night, I went into their rooms, took inventory. Tyler's stash of pills. Dad's handgun, still loaded. Mom's box of letters she kept hidden under her dresser, stained with perfume and someone else's handwriting. The house had secrets, and now they were mine. I burned the letters. I flushed the pills. I cleaned the gun. For the next few days, I did what they never expected. I stayed. I made their beds, cleaned the house, scrubbed the grime from the walls, opened the windows, let the light in. It felt like I was peeling away their stink from the place, making it mine, reclaiming every inch they infected. Downstairs, the cries turned to pleas. Then coughing. Then silence. They weren't dying. Not yet. I rationed the air. Took apart the vent system so I could control when it ran. Sometimes I'd let it blow for an hour, just enough to keep them conscious, enough to make them feel hope. And then I'd shut it off again. They tried to break through the door on the third day. I had been waiting for it. Reinforced the bottom with steel rods from the garage, melted and bent with the tools I'd hidden for months. When I heard the crash, I turned the volume up on the old record player. Jazz. Smooth and warm. Let them scream into the bass line. When the thumping stopped, I turned the air back on, just for 10 minutes, just long enough to hear them cry again. Mom was the first to say my name in a way that mattered. She didn't say it like a curse. She whispered it like a prayer. I stood above the basement door, quiet, hand on the knob, not opening it, just feeling the weight of their desperation pulsing through the wood. "You left me there," I said through the cracks, my voice steady, calm. "You let me rot." "We didn't mean," her voice cracked. "You fed me like a dog," I continued. "Now you'll die like one." The silence that followed soaked into my bones. I gave them water after that, just enough to keep them talking. Every day I asked them questions. "Do you remember why you did it? What did you tell your friends? What did you think I was doing down there all that time?" They didn't answer at first. Then came excuses, lies wrapped in gasps. They said I was sick, unstable, dangerous. They said they were scared of me. But I'd been listening for years. I knew the truth. They'd locked me away because I embarrassed them. Because they didn't want to deal with me anymore. Because it was easier. The next week, I turned the lights off in the basement completely. Left them in black silence. I unplugged the record player and replaced it with the sound of water dripping from a faucet, a steady, maddening tap that echoed through the vents like a clock ticking down. Then I started leaving notes. He slipped them under the crack in the basement door. One each day. They said things like, "What does it feel like? This is how long you left me alone. You're still breathing. Be grateful. Say my name again." Sometimes they screamed. Sometimes they went completely quiet. I preferred the quiet. I never once called the police. No one did. They made sure of that when they erased me from the world. No missing person, no case, no trace. So no one noticed when I stayed inside. No one noticed when they disappeared. And no one would. Because I wasn't running. This was home now. The real punishment was still coming. I started feeding them again. Not out of mercy. Out of necessity. Starving them to death would have been too quick, too clean. I wanted them aware. I wanted every hour to crawl under their skin like insects. So I brought them food. Not enough to satisfy. just enough to hurt slower. Rotten bread, cold canned beans, water with salt stirred in until their tongues blistered. They begged, thanked me even. My father, once proud and loud, whimpered like a child when he heard the latch open. He crawled toward the light, spilling through the crack like a dog, face gaunt, eyes sunken. I didn't speak to him. I dropped the plate and walked away. That was the routine. I gave them what they gave me, barely enough. But I never stopped watching. I'd installed cameras weeks before, tiny ones, hidden in the corners of the basement while they slept on the mattress I once shivered on. I used the feed to study them. Tyler tried to rally. He whispered to Dad at night, planning. Always the loudmouth, always thinking he could talk his way out of anything. But there was no door left to kick down, no lies left to spin. They didn't know I had the volume on full. Every word, every breath, I listened to it all. One night I heard him say, "When we get out, we kill him, first chance we get." He didn't say it like a threat. He said it like a promise. So the next morning, I turned on the gas for 30 seconds. Just enough to leave them coughing, clawing at their throats. Then I shut it off and played their old home videos on the living room TV. Birthday parties, barbecues, holidays. My face was always missing, either behind the camera or cut from the frame. They rewrote me long before they buried me. I let them know I remembered. That night, I played the video on a loop, turned the volume up high, and left the speaker beside the basement vent. I watched them plug their ears. Mom started to pray. Not to God, to me. The power balance had shifted. Not overnight, not with a scream. It bled into them slowly, like rust in water. They knew I was in control. They started begging for mercy. But I wasn't done. I brought down a speaker next, set it just outside the door, played static, sharp and steady until they forgot what silence sounded like. I switched it to lullabies next, the kind Mom used to hum when she was half sober, only now they sounded wrong, too slow, warped by the speaker. Each note stretched until it snapped. They cried again. It was working. One morning, I opened the door. They weren't expecting it. The smell hit me first. Stale sweat, piss, blood. I wore gloves, a mask. I didn't say a word. They blinked at the light like moles. Tyler lunged, too slow, too weak. I stepped back, let him fall on the concrete. "I'm moving you," I said. They didn't ask where, they just followed, crawling. I led them to the garage. Tiled it weeks ago, sterile now, cold. I'd built cages, dog crates, reinforced, cushioned only with towels. I put them in one by one, locked the doors. They didn't resist. From there, the routine changed. I talked to them now, read them books about survival, about isolation. I recited every therapy line I remembered from the court-mandated sessions they forced me into when I was 13. This is a safe space, this is healing. I stared at them through the bars, waiting to see who cracked first. It was Mom. She started talking to someone who wasn't there. She thought it was me, but she used my name like I was still 17, like I still needed help. Dad never said much, just stared ahead, blank, waiting for it to end. But Tyler, he tried. Every day he spat venom through the bars, promised revenge, called me a freak, a psycho, the same things they all used to say, until I showed him the video. Security cam footage from the house. The night I got out, the moment he forgot to lock the latch. I let him watch it over and over. His mistake, his fault. He didn't scream after that. He just stopped talking. Eventually, I moved them again. Back downstairs. The basement was cleaner now, sealed, the mattress replaced. Lights installed to flicker on a timer, just like they left them. It was a replica of what they gave me, only worse. I left a journal down there. The front page read, "Write down what you did. No lies, no excuses, just truth." If they filled a page, I gave them bread. If they didn't, I turned the gas on again. It took 2 weeks before the first page came back. Dad's handwriting, shaky. We failed you. Not enough. I wanted confessions. Guttural. Ugly. So I kept the journal going. One day it came back soaked in tears. Another time, blood. Progress. Justice isn't quick. Justice is patient. And I was very, very patient. I kept them alive longer than I needed to. Not because I wavered, not because I felt pity, because I wanted them to understand. I wanted them to live in it long enough that it sank into their bones, so even when the air left their lungs, the truth wouldn't. It was almost a year before I made the decision. The basement was still sealed, the cameras still worked, but there was nothing left to learn from them. The screams had faded into whimpers, the defiance into stares. I had reduced them to their most honest selves. Dad was just bones and sagging skin, now. A man who had built his life on silence and fists, now too weak to lift his own head. He muttered to himself, mostly numbers, probably the days he thought had passed, maybe trying to count his way out of the dark. Mom stopped speaking weeks ago. She sat in the corner of the room, arms around her knees, rocking. I caught her once whispering an apology to the wall, to no one, maybe to herself. And Tyler, he stared straight at the camera every day, never blinking, just watching. He'd grown a beard, patches of it white from stress, his jaw clenched in silence, like he'd swallowed every scream that once lived in his chest. I knew what he wanted. For me to come down, to make it personal, for him to feel like he had a chance again. But I wasn't that kid anymore. The boy they threw into a hole didn't crawl out. Something else did. One night, I pulled the final journal page from the slot. Just one sentence, written in Tyler's hand. We were wrong, but you're worse than us now. I smiled when I read it, because he finally understood that this wasn't revenge. This was a mirror. I was only ever giving them what they gave me. I slept that night without the nightmares for the first time in years. The next morning, I walked down to the basement. Not to talk, not to hurt them, just to see. They didn't rise when I opened the door. They didn't even flinch. I laid 3 plates on the ground. Then I poured gasoline around the room, slow and deliberate, while they watched. I say a word. They knew what it meant. Tyler finally stood, shaky, lips cracked. He looked at me with eyes that used to laugh when they locked the door behind me. Now they just begged. You don't have to, he said, voice hoarse. But I did, because mercy was never part of this story. I lit the match and dropped it without ceremony. And then I sealed the door again. Not with bolts, with bricks. I spent the whole day stacking them, mixing mortar, row after row, until the entrance was gone, until the basement became a tomb. Not rushed, not panicked, careful, purposeful, like a monument. The fire never spread. I built it that way. Contained, controlled. Let them feel the smoke, the heat, the desperation. But not the end. Not yet. I made sure there was just enough ventilation to keep them breathing. Not living, breathing. It took 3 days before the screams stopped for good. I didn't listen. I'd already moved on. I sold the house. No questions asked. Some cheap company that flips old homes. Didn't care about the extra concrete under the floors. No one ever checks the basement in places like that, especially when there's no door anymore. I changed my name. Got a new job. A small place with no family photos, no past. People call me quiet, polite. They say I have the calm kind of face you trust. That's good. That's useful. Because out there, the world's full of people like them. People who think they can bury others in the dark and walk away clean. But I'm still here. And I remember, because the truth is, I never really left that basement. I just took it with me.